Picture this. You ride into a dusty frontier town. The sun is blazing. You tie up your horse, tip your hat, and get arrested. Why? Because you forgot to give your horse a drink of water. That's not a joke. That was an actual law. Welcome to the Wild West, where outlaws ran free, justice was sketchy at best, and the law books were somehow more insane than the criminals they were supposed to stop. And today we're counting the 50 dumbest Wild West laws, real ordinances, statutes, and codes from the frontier era that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the good old days. Let's ride! Laws 50 through 41, warming up the weird. Number 50, Tombstone, Arizona. It was illegal to wear suspenders. Tombstone, the most famous Wild West town in American history, actually had an ordinance banning suspenders. The idea that suspenders were considered improper public attire. So while gunfights in the street were kind of fine, your pants-holding accessories were not. Number 49, Prescott, Arizona. No riding a horse up the courthouse steps. You'd think this wouldn't need to be written down, and yet somebody absolutely galloped their horse straight up those courthouse steps, probably more than once, before the town council said, enough. Number 48, Texas. You cannot shoot a buffalo from a second-story window. The bison population was already devastated by the 1870s, but Texas still felt it necessary to ban shooting them from an elevated hotel window. This implies that someone had done it more than once. Number 47, Nevada. It was illegal to ride a camel on public highways. This one sounded absurd until you learn that the U.S. Army literally imported camels in the 1850s to use as pack animals in the desert Southwest. When the experiment failed, the camels were released. Some ended up in Nevada. Apparently, people tried to ride them around town. Number 46, Nogales, Arizona. No wearing of suspenders. Yes, again. Apparently, Tombstone wasn't the only Arizona town with a suspender obsession. Nogales would also outlawed them. We can only assume that suspender-related chaos was a serious frontier crisis. Number 45, Dodge City, Kansas. Carrying a concealed weapon was actually illegal. Here, the irony of all ironies. Dodge City, the most shoot-'em-up town in Western mythology, had some of the strictest gun law controls on the frontier. You had to check your firearms at the edge of town. Wyatt Earp enforced this himself. The Wild West wasn't quite as wild as Hollywood made it to look. Number 44, Idaho. A man cannot give his sweetheart a box of candy weighing less than 40 pounds. This one is from Idaho's frontier-era courtship laws. If you're going to woo a woman with chocolate, you had better be serious about it. 50 pounds of candy is not a gift. It is a commitment. Number 43, Kansas. No hunting whales. Kansas is a landlocked state. There are no whales in Kansas. There never have been whales in Kansas. And yet, someone in the territorial government sat down and said, you know what we need? A whale hunting ban. Passed. Number 42, Colorado. Catapults were banned in public spaces. And during the frontier boom towns of Colorado, someone apparently launched something or someone via catapult in a town square. No further explanation was given. None was needed. Number 41, New Mexico. Idiots could not vote. New Mexico's early territorial law actually included idiots as a disenfranchised class, alongside criminals and the insane. Defining who qualified as an idiot was apparently left up to local discretion, which opened up a remarkable amount of creative interpretation. Laws 40 through 31. Things get weirder. Number 40, Elko, Nevada. Everyone walking the streets was required to carry a bucket of water. The fear of fire in wooden frontier towns was so extreme that Elko mandated every pedestrian carry water. Just walk around with a bucket at all times. In case of fire, you were essentially a human fire hydrant. Number 39, Arizona Territory. No hunting or shooting at any wild animal from a moving vehicle. This law was more progressive than you'd expect, but it existed because frontier settlers were doing exactly that, firing rifles from horses and wagons at anything that moved, often into crowds. Number 38, Tombstone, Arizona. No slaughtering cattle in the streets. Again, Tombstone. Again, this implies someone was absolutely doing this. The cowboys would drive herds right through town, and apparently the slaughtering sometimes started early. Number 37. Wyoming. Women could serve on juries, but men kept quitting to avoid serving with them. In 1870, Wyoming became the first territory to allow women jurors. The law was progressive. The male response was not. Many men claimed illness or outright refused to serve rather than sit next to a woman judge of character. Number 36. Montana. It was illegal to pretend to be a preacher. This law was necessary because con men in frontier towns would dress up as traveling preachers, collect donations, and disappear before next Sunday. Montana's legislator says fraudulent fire and brimstone ends here. Number 35. Utah. Birds had the right of way on highways. Passed during the early settlement era, Utah's law required wagons to stop and yield to any bird crossing the road. This was partly about agriculture. Settlers didn't want their horses spooking and scattering livestock, but the broad wording covered every bird from eagles to sparrows. Number 34. Oklahoma. No one was allowed to make ugly faces at a dog. Harassment of animals, specifically by making threatening or ugly faces, was outlawed in early Oklahoma. The law appears to have been motivated by incidents of people taunting working ranch dogs, disrupting their duties. Number 33. Arizona. It is illegal to refuse a person a glass of water. This one is actually still on the books. In Arizona, denying a thirsty person a glass of water is illegal. Given the desert climate, this makes a certain amount of life or death sense. Number 32. Texas. The entire Encyclopedia Britannica was once banned. In the late 1800s, Texas officials objected to the encyclopedia's entry on how to make beer at home. The whole set was briefly banned statewide. The frontier was concerned about a lot of things. Home brewing was apparently at the top. Number 31. Nevada. It was once illegal to sell alcohol without a gambling license. Only in Nevada. In an inversion of what you might expect, you couldn't run a bar without also running a gambling operation. The territory's economy was so dependent on vice that the two were legally inseparable. Laws 30 through 21, reaching peak absurdity. Number 30. Colorado. No throwing missiles at cars. Frontier towns anticipated automobiles so poorly that early ordinances against throwing rocks, horseshoes, and other missiles at moving vehicles were drawn up almost as an afterthought and applied to anything moving, horse or horseless carriage. Number 29. Texas. It is illegal to milk another person's cow. This seems obvious until you consider the open range system of the frontier west, where cattle roam freely across unfenced plains. The question of which cow belonged to whom, and whether you could milk a stray, was a genuinely serious legal dispute. Number 28. Tombstone, Arizona. No more than 8 ladies could live in the same house. Tombstone, population of chaos, tried to regulate its considerable number of brothels by capping occupancy. 8 was, apparently, the magic number that separated a home from a business in the eyes of the law. Number 27. Montana. You could not jangle your spurs in public. The sound of jangling spurs in hotels and restaurants became such a nuisance that Montana towns passed noise ordinances specifically targeting them. Cowboys were asked to remove their spurs or muffle them at the door. Number 26. Oklahoma. Whittling a knife in public was illegal if you were going to fight someone. This is actually a genius law. It's specific, you can whittle. But if anyone thought you were whittling with intent, that was a crime. Oklahoma courts apparently became very good at judging threatening whittle posture. Number 25. Idaho. A man cannot buy alcohol without his wife's permission. Frontier-era temperaments movements pushed harder in Idaho, and this law was the result. A husband needed written or verbal consent from his wife before purchasing liquor. The saloon keeper was responsible for verifying it. Saloon keepers were apparently not great at verifying it. Number 24. Wyoming. It was illegal for women to stand within 5 feet of a bar. Less than a decade after giving women the right to vote and jury rights, Wyoming towns were banning women from approaching bars and saloons. Frontier law had a remarkable capacity for contradiction. Number 23. Texas. Criminals must give their victims 24 hours notice before committing a crime. This one is so absurd it sounds entirely made up, and it may have been a satirical ordinance or legal joke that got mistakenly regarded as law. But it has appeared in Texas legal records. Polite crime was apparently a frontier value. Number 22. New Mexico. It was illegal to have a dirty horse. Frontier towns took the appearance of horses seriously. A dirty horse was considered a sign of neglect, and in towns where horses were essential infrastructure, neglect was a genuine community concern. Horse baths were not optional. Number 21. Arizona. It is illegal to hunt camels. We're back to camels. After the U.S. Army released their failed camel experiment into the desert, Arizona had to pass laws protecting them, partly because settlers found them unnerving and started shooting them. The camels did not ask for any of this. Laws 20 through 11, the final stretch of frontier foolishness. Number 20. Tombstone, Arizona. No smoking in public. In 1978. Long before the modern anti-smoking movement, Tombstone banned public smoking. Not for health reasons, but because of fire risk. Every building was wood, every lamp was oil, and one careless cigar could burn the whole town down, which happened multiple times. Number 19. Kansas. No driving a herd of cattle through town after dark. Nighttime cattle drives through Wichita and Dodge City turned into chaotic stampedes with alarming regularity. Darkness, cattle, and saloon noise do not mix. Kansas eventually just banned the whole enterprise between sunset and sunrise. Number 18. Colorado. No black cats allowed out on Friday the 13th. This superstition-based ordinance survived from frontier-era Colorado and was never formally repealed in some counties for decades. Black cat owners were expected to keep their animals indoor on that specific date every month. Number 17. Texas. You can't carry a pair of pliers in your pocket. This came from range wars over barbed wire fencing. Cattle ranchers and homesteaders were in violent conflict over who could fence off land, and pliers, used to cut barbed wire, became a symbol of that conflict. Carrying them was considered evidence of criminal intent. Number 16. Oklahoma. No wearing of boots in bed. Early Oklahoma lodging houses, dealing with cowboys who came in drunk and fully clothed, eventually had to legislate what you could and couldn't wear while sleeping in a rented bed. Boots caused too much damage to linens. It was a business decision masquerading as law. Number 15. Nevada. No shooting at a rabbit from a moving streetcar. By the time Nevada had streetcars, it also apparently had residents who wanted to hunt rabbits from them. This law had to be passed. Someone tried it. The streetcar presumably survived. Number 14. Wyoming. It was illegal to ski down a public street. Early ski enthusiasts in Wyoming mountain towns would occasionally barrel down Main Street on wooden skis after heavy snowfall. The law was passed after several collisions with horses, delivery wagons, and at least one very surprised sheriff. Number 13. Montana. No unmarried woman could be alone in hotel rooms unless the room was locked. The logic here was inverted from modern thinking. The law was apparently to protect women, but in practice it gave hotel owners enormous power to police women's movements. Frontier chivalry often had a controlling edge. Number 12. Idaho. Fishing from the back of a camel is illegal. Idaho doesn't have camels, and yet some legislative soul decided that camel-based fishing was a future they needed to prevent. This is a frontier solution to a problem that never existed, and never will exist. Number 11. Tombstone, Arizona. Gambling was legal. Cheating at gambling was punishable by death. Tombstone legalized gambling in 1880, but drew a very firm moral line at cheating. Whether this was ever formally enforced via execution is unclear, but the message was sent: play fair or play your last hand. Laws 10 through 1, the absolute dumbest of all. Number 10. Texas. No cursing in front of a corpse. Apparently, disrespecting the dead, even verbally, was a criminal matter in frontier Texas. This applied in funeral parlors, at gravesites, and even in the street when a body was being transported. Silence around the deceased was legally mandated. Number 9. Arizona. You must water your horse before entering a saloon. Horse welfare came first on the frontier. If you wanted a drink, your horse got one first. Saloons in some Arizona towns were legally required to have water troughs, and riders had to use them. The horse's comfort was non-negotiable. Number 8. Wyoming. A woman could not be photographed on Sundays. Sunday was a Sabbath, and apparently photography on that day was considered frivolous, especially for women, who were expected to be in church or at home. Frontier-era morality was nothing if not specific about who got to relax on weekends. Number 7. Kansas. No shooting of rabbits from a motor vehicle. This is the car version of Law Number 15. As motor cars replaced horses on the frontier, the laws updated accordingly. Apparently, Kansans were deeply committed to hunting from moving vehicles regardless of what technology was available. Number 6. Nevada. It was illegal to lie down on the sidewalk. Reno and Virginia City had persistent problems with intoxicated miners and cowboys simply lying down in the middle of the boardwalk, blocking foot traffic. Rather than address the root cause, the legislature banned horizontal public existence. Number 5. Dodge City, Kansas. You had to bathe at least once a year, whether you needed it or not. The exact phrasing of this law, whether you needed it or not, is a frontier masterpiece. The town of Dodge City did not trust its residents to make hygienic decisions independently and mandated a minimum annual scrub. 1 per year. The bar was set low. Number 4. Texas. No graffiti on someone else's cow. With millions of cattle crossing the open Texas range, branding was essential and legally protected. Writing on, drawing on, or otherwise defacing another man's cow with paint, chalk, or anything else was a criminal offense. The cattle were not amused. Number 3. Oklahoma. Whaling is illegal. Oklahoma is landlocked. It always has been. Not only is there no ocean in Oklahoma, there has never been a whale hunting industry, a whaling fleet, or any reasonable expectation of cetacean activity in the state. And yet, they passed the law just to be safe. Number 2. Colorado. It was illegal to mutilate a rock in a state park. Believe it or not, this one is reasonable by 1800s standards. Colorado's frontier parks were being destroyed by souvenir hunters, chipping pieces off boulders and canyon walls. The law was genuine conservation. Still, mutilating a rock remains the most Colorado crime imaginable. And the number 1 dumbest Wild West law. Number 1. Arizona. It is illegal for a donkey to sleep in a bathtub. This is the crown jewel of frontier legislation. In 1924, in the town of Kingman, Arizona, a merchant kept his donkey in an old cast-iron bathtub near a canal. A flood swept the tub and the donkey miles downstream. The rescue cost the town enormous time and resources. The solution? A law, specifically banning donkeys from sleeping in bathtubs. The donkey was fine. The law is still technically on the books. And there you have it. 50 of the most ridiculous, baffling, and genuinely real laws from the Wild West era. From whale hunting bans in landlocked states to mandatory candy weights for suitors, the frontier lawmakers were doing their absolute best with what they had. The Wild West wasn't just lawless, it was creatively lawless, and the people trying to fix it were creative right back. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below. Which law blew your mind the most? My personal vote will always be the donkey in the bathtub. Stay out of trouble, and for the love that all is holy, do not let your donkey anywhere near the bathtub.